Spain country located in extreme southwestern Europe. It occupies about 85% of the Iberian Peninsula, which it shares with its smaller neighbor Portugal. Spain is a storied country of stone castles, snow-capped mountains, vast monuments, and sophisticated cities, all of which have made it a favored travel destination. The country is geographically and culturally diverse. Its heartland is the Meseta, a broad central plateau half a mile above sea level. Much of the region is traditionally given over to cattle ranching and grain production. It was in this rural setting that Miguel de Cervantes Don Quixote tilted at the tall windmills that still dot the landscape in several places. In the country's northeast are the broad valley of the Ebro River, the mountainous region of Catalonia, and the hilly coastal plain of Valencia. To the northwest is the Cantabrian Mountains, a rugged range in which heavily forested, rain-swept valleys are interspersed with tall peaks. The southern portion of the country is desert, an extension of the Sahara made familiar to Americans through the spaghetti western films of the 1960s and early 70s. Lined with palm trees, rosary bushes, and other tropical vegetation, the southeastern Mediterranean coast and the Balearic Islands enjoy a gentle climate, drawing millions of visitors and retirees, especially from northern Europe. Land: Spain is bordered to the west by Portugal. To the northeast it borders France, from which it is separated by the tiny Principality of Andorra and by the Great Wall of the Pyrenees Mountains. Spain's only other land border is in the far south with Gibraltar, an enclave that belonged to Spain until 1713, when it was ceded to Great Britain in the Treaty of Utrecht at the end of the War of the Spanish Succession. Elsewhere, the country is bounded by water by the Mediterranean Sea to the east and southeast, by the Atlantic Ocean to the northwest and southwest, and by the Bay of Biscay to the north. The Canary Islands in the Atlantic Ocean off the northwestern African mainland and the Balearic Islands in the Mediterranean also are parts of Spain, as are Ceuta and Melilla, two small enclaves in North Africa that Spain has ruled for centuries. Plant and animal life. Nearly half of Spain is covered by spontaneous vegetation of some sort, but only a small proportion is classified as dense woodland. Northern Spain has heath and deciduous woodland. The mountains of the northern Meseta and the Iberian and Betic cordilleras carry deciduous Portuguese oak. Those of the central Pyrenees, the Iberian ranges, and the central Sierras have diverse pine species. The rest, more than half of Spain, has a Mediterranean vegetation characterized by evergreen oak and other drought-resistant plants commonly reduced to scrub status. An esparto grass is found in the steppes of La Mancha and the southeast. The esparto products of Spain. People, ethnic groups. Spain has been invaded and inhabited by many different peoples. The peninsula was originally settled by groups from North Africa and Western Europe, including the Iberians, Celts, and Basques. Throughout antiquity, it was a constant point of attraction for the civilizations of the eastern Mediterranean. From c. 1100 BC, the Phoenicians, the Greeks, and the Carthaginians began to establish settlements and trading posts, especially on the eastern and southern coasts. These outsiders found a mosaic of peoples collectively known as the Iberians, who did not have a single culture or even share a single language. The Romans. The Phoenician and Greek presence was limited to small coastal regions. The Carthaginians were the first to move inland late in the 3rd century BC. They set out to conquer as much of the peninsula as they could. Yet their success led to intervention in Iberia from the Romans, who quickly drove out the Carthaginians and conquered much of the peninsula. The Romans, however, had to deal with a number of revolts, and it was only in 19 BC, after almost 200 years of warfare, that they secured their rule over all of Iberia. The Visigoths. Roman power in Spain collapsed during the 5th century CE when a number of Germanic peoples, the Suebi, the Alani, the Vandals, and finally the Visigoths invaded the peninsula. At the end of the 6th century, King Leovigild brought all of Spain under Visigothic rule, and his son Richard imposed a single religion, Catholic Christianity, on the country. The Muslims. Visigothic rule did not last long. In 711, Muslim Arabs invaded Spain from North Africa and defeated the Visigothic ruler King Roderick. They quickly conquered almost the entire peninsula and established Muslim states in Spain that were to last until 1492. Religion. Roman Catholicism became the official religion of Spain in 589 and has been closely identified with the country ever since. The advent of political liberalism at the beginning of the 19th century led to a series of conflicts between church and state, especially over land ownership and the control of education. Even so, Catholicism remained the official religion of the state until the Second Republic 1930-36. After the Spanish Civil War, General Francisco Franco restored it as the state religion, and it retained that status until the proclamation of the Constitution of 1978. Since then, Spain has had no official religion, but the Roman Catholic Church continues to receive financial support from the state. Economy. The Spanish economy began to industrialize in the late 18th century, and industrialization and economic growth continued throughout the 19th century. However, it was limited to a few relatively small areas of the country, especially to Catalonia and the Basque Country. The overall pace of economic growth was slower than that of the major Western European countries, so that by the early 20th century Spain appeared poor and underdeveloped compared with countries such as Great Britain, Germany, France, and even Italy. Agriculture, forestry, and fishing, vegetables, fruits, and cereals are the principal crops, accounting for about 3/4 of Spain's agricultural production, with cereals the principal crops. Barley and wheat, the major crops in Spain, predominate on the plains of Castile, Leon, Castile-La Mancha, and Andalusia, while rice is grown in coastal Valencia and southern Catalonia. Corn, grown in the north, is a major fodder product. Other crops include cotton, tobacco, sugar beets, olives, a large portion of which are used for oil, and legumes, beans, lentils, and chickpeas. Other fruit crops include apples, apricots, bananas, pears, peaches, and plums. Spain also produces vegetables, especially tomatoes, onions, and potatoes, and nuts, almonds. Important forestry products are cork, eucalyptus, oak, pine, and poplar. With about 5,000 miles of coastline, Spain has long had an important fishing industry, which relies on fishing grounds off its coast and as far away as the Pacific and Indian Oceans. The main fishing ports are in the northwest, especially Vigo and A Coruña. The activities of the commercial fishing fleet led to conflicts between Spain and a number of other countries, especially Morocco and Canada. Health and welfare. Since the 1960s, Spain's increasing prosperity and the generalized availability of government-sponsored health care have combined to cause dramatic improvements in levels of health and well-being. By the beginning of the 21st century, life expectancy in Spain was among the highest in the world. Spain also had more doctors per capita than most other countries of the EU. The health system is administered by the National Ministry of Health through a department known as the National Institute of Health. However, as the system of regional autonomy developed, much of the responsibility for health care devolved to the regional governments, first to Andalusia, Galicia, the Basque Country, Catalonia, Valencia, the Canary Islands, and Navarra, and later to other regions. The system provides a full range of services in clinics and in general and specialized hospitals. Education. Spain's first comprehensive public education plan was contained in the Moyano Law of 1857. It remained basically unchanged until 1970, when the General Law on Education was passed. Since then, many other education reforms have taken place. The school system has a number of levels: preschool to age 6, primary school for ages 6 or 7 to 11, secondary school for ages 12 to 16, baccalaureate school for ages 17 and 18, and university. Education is free and compulsory for children between the ages of 6 and 16. Literacy exceeds 95% of the population. Spain still has a large private education sector, almost all of which is Catholic, but since the 1960s, the predominance of the state has been clearly established, especially in secondary education. In the 1980s, the Catholic schools, most of which received substantial subsidies from the state, were subjected to closer government control, and religious education was removed as an obligatory subject. Cultural life. As in much of Western Europe, the culture of Spain was marked decisively by the period of Roman rule. In language, religion, even architectural traditions, the Romans left a lasting legacy. However, the subsequent course of Spanish history added elements to the country's cultural development that were missing or much weaker in other European countries. The most important differences stem from the Arabic-speaking Muslims from the Middle East and North Africa, who invaded Spain in 700 Latin CE and dominated dominated much of the country for almost 800 years. The Muslim cultural influence was very strong, especially in the area of language. Indeed, the Spanish language has taken more words from Arabic than from any other source except Latin.